You know what's funny about daughters? They think they know everything until their own tricks bite them back. My daughter, Elise, used me as the before photo for her wellness brand, but that brand collapsed under the weight of her own lies. It started simple enough. I was sitting in my recliner one lazy afternoon, gray hair messy, belly poking out over my belt, glasses halfway down my nose. Elise snapped a photo with her phone, giggling like it was a joke. "Dad, you're perfect for this," she said, eyes on her screen. I shrugged it off, thinking she was just playing around. A week later, I got a text from a neighbor. "Saw you on Elise's site." Curious, I pulled up her new wellness page. There I was, slouched and tired-looking, captioned, "Don't let this be you. Start your glow up today with Glow Path." My face burned. I wasn't her dad anymore. I was her sad example. The man who'd raised her, paid for her college, wiped her tears, reduced to a marketing prop. I clenched my fist, staring at the screen. She had no clue what she'd unleashed. For 68 years, I'd been quiet, dependable Frank Turner, retired history teacher from Ohio. Widowed, a bit round in the middle, but with a spine of steel. Elise, ambitious and sharp-tongued, thought my looks were just tools for her empire. She forgot I could watch, wait, and strike when it mattered. That photo wasn't the end. It was my beginning. Just before you continue to watch, Joe would like you to subscribe to this channel and like this video. It would encourage him to keep his streak of thrilling revenge stories for you to watch. All right, back to the story. The humiliation hit like a wave. Neighbors started sending links, chuckling over coffee. "Frank, you're famous," one said at the mailbox. Elise's Instagram reels exploded. Me as the frumpy before, then her glowing selfies, skin airbrushed, body sculpted by filters. From dad bod to fab bod. "Join Glow Path," the voiceover chirped. At the grocery store, the cashier scanned my items and smirked. "So, how's the diet going, Mr. Turner? Seen your pics online." I forced a smile, but inside, shame twisted like a knife. Strangers pitted me, friends whispered. Elise didn't care. She was raking in likes and sales. But I saw the truth. Her whole brand depended on exploiting real people, starting with me. She sold meal plans I knew she never followed, yoga guides from apps she barely opened. One night, I scrolled her comments. Fake praise mixed with bots. That's when it clicked. Brands built on lies always crack. I wasn't going to yell or fight. No, I'd gather proof, let her tower grow tall, then watch it topple. As a history teacher, I knew empires fall hardest when they're hollow inside. Elise thought she was building something grand. She had no idea I was already mapping the faults. Elise launched Glow Path Wellness with a bang, touting meal plans, yoga guides, and even her own line of supplements. She called herself a self-made health guru, posting videos of her transformation journey that racked up thousands of views. But behind the curtain, it was all facade. I caught her chugging energy drinks late at night, skipping real meals for quick snacks. One day, while visiting, I watched her snap photos of a vibrant kale salad she never touched, just staged it for the gram, then tossed it in the trash. Her empire wasn't about wellness. It was smoke and mirrors, built on pretty pictures and empty promises. She preached balance while her life spun like a hamster wheel on steroids. As a retired teacher, I'd seen fads come and go, but this one stung because it used me as the foundation. That's when I decided to keep track of every lie, jotting notes in a hidden file on my old laptop. Fake poses, hyped claims. She was stacking cards higher each day. Little did she know, I was the wind waiting to blow them down. Her glow was artificial, and I had the switch. At Sunday dinner, the family gathered around my oak table, plates piled with roast and potatoes. Elise, wine glass in hand, couldn't resist. "Dad, you're my best testimonial. Look at you," she laughed, gesturing at my belly like it was Exhibit A in her courtroom of mockery. The relatives chuckled, forks pausing mid-bite, while my sister shot me a sympathetic glance. Everyone played along, except me. I smiled politely, but inside, my silence sharpened like a blade in the forge. She had no idea the man she mocked was already setting the stage for her downfall. I'd been quiet all my life, raising her after her mom passed, sacrificing vacations for her dreams. Now, she treated me like a prop in her play. As dessert came out, she rambled on about her latest sales spike, oblivious to my growing resolve. Revenge tastes better when it simmers, like a slow-cooked stew that hits harder with time. I cleared the plates without a word, but my mind raced ahead. The betrayal at that table fueled me. She thought she was the star. Soon, she'd learn the audience could turn. I overheard Elise bragging to her cousin on the phone about hitting 100K followers overnight. Her voice dripped with pride, like she'd conquered Everest in yoga pants. But the next day, while I fixed her spotty Wi-Fi, something she always called me for, treating me like her personal IT guy, I peeked at her analytics dashboard on her open laptop. Half those followers were bots, bought in cheap bulk from shady sites. The comments? Copy-paste drivel like amazing transformation, repeated 100 times by accounts with 0 posts. I chuckled to myself. A wellness queen ruling over a ghost army, all smoke signals and no fire. As a history buff, I knew fake empires collapse faster than the Roman one, especially when the legions are illusions. She paraded her numbers like trophies, but they were hollow as a chocolate Easter bunny. That discovery lit a spark. I started noting it all down. Lies like hers couldn't hold weight forever, not when gravity, or a determined dad, pulled hard enough. Elise thought she was untouchable, floating on her digital cloud. But clouds burst, and I was the gathering storm. One late night, after she'd crashed from another energy drink binge, I spotted her invoices scattered on the kitchen counter like confetti from a failed party. Curiosity got me. I flipped through them quietly. She was buried $40,000 deep in loans, all siphoned into flashy ads, branded merch, and those bought followers. Her on-screen smile masked a desperation sharper than a credit card swipe. The empire was already crumbling. She just didn't know it yet, too busy chasing the next viral hit to see the cracks in her foundation. I taught history for decades. I knew debt sinks ships faster than icebergs. Hers was a Titanic of deceit, steaming full speed into disaster. But I had the patience of a glacier, watching the walls inch closer to collapse. I snapped photos of those papers with my phone, adding them to my growing file. She thought her glow was eternal, but it was just a flickering bulb running on borrowed power. I wasn't done building my case. Every shred of evidence was another brick in the wall I'd used to bury her facade. The fall was coming, and I'd have front row seats. While fixing her leaky sink one rainy afternoon, I crouched under the counter, wrench in hand, when Elise's voice blasted from her phone on speaker in the next room. She was screaming at a supplier, her tone sharper than a porcupine's quills. "These supplements are delayed again? And what's with the bad ingredients? I can't sell this junk," she yelled, pacing like a caged tiger. The mask slipped right then. I caught a glimpse of the fraud she truly was, peddling cheap pills dressed up as miracles. She wasn't selling health. She was hawking snake oil to desperate folks chasing dreams. As a dad who'd fixed more than pipes in his life, I knew rot when I smelled it. Quietly, I pulled out my phone and recorded a snippet of her rant, the words clear as day. Evidence like that was a father's quiet sword, tucked away for the perfect strike. She hung up, oblivious, and called me to check if the sink was done. I nodded, smiling inwardly. Her empire was built on quicksand, and I was the tide rolling in. The lies were piling up, and so was my arsenal. One crisp morning at the library, flipping through history books, one of Elise's clients stopped me in the aisle. Mrs. Harlan, a kind widow from down the street, leaned in with a frown. "Frank, those weight loss pills Elise promised? They gave me pounding migraines, had to stop after a week." Her voice trembled, eyes weary from broken trust. Later that day, another neighbor, Mr. Baxter, caught me at the park bench. Her custom meal plan was just a generic PDF I could find free online. "Paid $200 for nothing," he grumbled, shaking his head. People had trusted her glowy promises, handing over hard-earned cash, only to get leached dry. Every story I heard added fuel to my fire, turning my quiet anger into a roaring blaze. As a retired teacher, I'd seen cons before, but this one hit home. They weren't just clients. They were folks like me, seeking better days. Soon, that trust would flip into fury, a backlash sharper than a boomerang. I noted their tales in my ledger, building the case brick by brick. Elise thought she was soaring. I was clipping her wings. I bought a small notebook from the corner store, the kind with a plain black cover, and started jotting everything down in my neat teacher's script. Fake followers bought in batches, unpaid debts stacking like unpaid library fines, unhappy clients whispering their woes, shady suppliers peddling junk disguised as gold. Each entry was another crack spiderwebbing through her glass castle, fragile and ready to shatter under pressure. My daughter thought she was untouchable, perched high on her throne of likes and filters, but fathers know how to build and dismantle with precision. I'd constructed lessons for decades. Now, this was my masterclass in consequences. The pages filled quickly. Dates, names, snippets of overheard calls. It wasn't rage driving me anymore, but a cool resolve, like a chess player plotting checkmate moves ahead. Elise paraded her success, oblivious to the termites I'd documented eating away at her foundation. She saw me as her harmless before prop. I saw her empire as a house of cards in a stiff breeze. And I was about to dismantle her, one truth at a time, watching the whole thing fold. At the family barbecue that sunny weekend, smoke rising from the grill like signals of impending doom, Elise couldn't help herself. She waved at my belly, burger in hand, and crowed, "Dad's my forever before photo. Proof Glowpath works wonders." The relatives erupted in laughter, slapping backs and raising beers, the sting landing like a swarm of bees on bare skin. My sister frowned, but the others played along, turning me into the punchline once more. I bit my tongue, forcing a grin that felt like chewing gravel, while sliding my notebook deeper into my pocket. What no one saw was the shift inside me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calculating, a retired teacher grading her final exam with red ink ready. Mockery has an expiration date, like milk left too long in the sun, and hers was souring fast. As the sun dipped, she bragged about her retreat plans, eyes gleaming with greed. I nodded along, but my mind tallied the tally. The laughter faded into the evening, but my plan hummed on, a quiet engine revving for the crash. Elise announced her biggest venture yet with a flashy email blast, a $5,000 weekend retreat at a rented lakeside lodge, promising detox juices, sunrise yoga, and deep healing sessions to unlock inner glow. She paraded it on her socials like a peacock in full feather, raking in signups from hopefuls chasing her filtered fantasy. But I watched the truth unfold from afar. One evening, peeking over her shoulder as she unpacked boxes, I saw her ordering cases of store-brand apple juice online, then slapping on homemade labels calling it detox elixir infused with ancient herbs. No herbs in sight, just sugar water dressed up like royalty. She was about to scam dozens of wide-eyed attendees in one greedy weekend, pocketing thousands while serving slop. As her dad, who'd scrimped to send her to school, the irony burned like cheap whiskey. But I knew exactly how to ruin her show, my notebook brimming with ammo. The retreat would be her undoing, a stage set for the grand reveal. She thought it was her pinnacle. I saw it as her cliff edge, and I was ready to give a gentle push. I started planting the seeds quietly, like a gardener sowing weeds in a prized rose bed. First, I called 2 of her clients anonymously from a burner app on my phone, disguising my voice with a cough here and there. "Hey, check her follower count. Half are bots," I hinted to one, then whispered about the junk supplements causing side effects to the other. They gasped, promised to dig deeper. Next, I reached out to the local newspaper, slipping a few scanned receipts and analytics screenshots into an unmarked envelope dropped at their office. "Investigate Glowpath. It's not what it seems," my note read. One curious reporter, a sharp young woman named Carla, smelled blood in the water and called me back on a blocked number. "This could be big," she said, excitement crackling. The walls were closing in on Elise, tightening like a noose she couldn't see. But she didn't even flinch, too busy posing for her next selfie in downward dog, filters cranked to max. Her empire teetered, and my quiet moves were the tremors building to an earthquake. I found more of Elise's burned clients through quiet chats at the coffee shop and library whispers. Mrs. Harlan introduced me to 3 others who'd bought her supplements, only to suffer stomach cramps and empty promises. We formed a quiet little circle in my backyard one evening, under the oak tree, swapping horror stories over iced tea. She charged me $300 for a plan that was copied from a free app. One fumed. Another nodded. My skin broke out from those miracle pills. Had to see a doctor. They wanted refunds, simple justice to mend their wallets and pride. But I wanted something more. Poetic revenge, a downfall as staged as her selfies. Together, we built a case file thicker than a phone book, receipts, emails, screenshots of her lies. We cross-checked dates, matched complaints to her posts. It was like assembling a puzzle where every piece screamed fraud. Elise's empire loomed large, but our folder was the dynamite underneath. All we needed was the right stage to light the fuse, and her retreat was shaping up perfectly. The troops were ready. The battle lines drawn in ink and anger. Elise bragged nonstop about her retreat, getting local media coverage, posting teasers with hashtags like #GlowPathMagic. Channel 5 might even film a segment, she crowed during a phone call, her voice buzzing with false energy. Perfect. She wanted cameras to capture her glory. I wanted witnesses to her unraveling. Then came the invite. Dad, come as my mascot of transformation. It'll be hilarious. Show everyone your before in person. She laughed like it was a gift, not a gut punch. I accepted with a smile that hid the fire raging inside, a blaze stoked by months of mockery. As a history teacher, I knew spectacles could make or break legends. Hers would be the latter. I packed my notebook, the case file copied onto a flash drive, ready to share if the moment struck. The lodge buzzed in my mind like a theater before curtain call. She thought I was her prop. I'd become her director's nightmare. The stage lights were waiting, hot and unforgiving, to expose every shadow she'd hidden. Elise strutted toward her spotlight, blind to the trapdoor I'd quietly installed beneath her feet. Dozens of guests rolled into the lakeside lodge that crisp Friday evening, cars crunching gravel like eager pilgrims chasing salvation. They shelled out $5,000 each for Elise's miracle weekend, eyes wide with hope for detoxes and glow-ups. Elise pranced around in her designer yoga gear, hugging arrivals like a goddess descending from Instagram heaven, her smile as fake as her filters. "Welcome to transformation," she beamed, handing out branded water bottles filled with tap water. I stayed in the back shadows, nursing a coffee, watching her lie with effortless grace, promising deep healing while her own life unraveled in secret. But then I spotted her. Carla, the reporter I'd tipped off, blending in with a notebook, scribbling furiously in the corner. My pulse quickened like a drumbeat before battle, the air thick with anticipation. She caught my eye, nodded subtly, our signal that the net was cast. Elise floated on, oblivious, posing for group selfies. The lodge hummed with chatter, but I knew the harmony was fragile. Showtime was near, and her stage was rigged to collapse under the weight of truth. The next morning, Elise kicked off the retreat with her special detox juice, served in fancy glasses like elixir from the gods. She touted it as a blend of rare herbs and superfoods to flush toxins and spark inner fire. But I knew the truth. It was nothing more than cheap store-brand apple juice spiked with cayenne pepper, a recipe she'd pulled from a free blog and marked up as premium. Guests sipped eagerly at first, faces twisting as the burn hit. One woman gagged dramatically, clutching her throat. Another nearly vomited into a potted plant, sputtering excuses about allergies. Murmurs rippled through the room like a bad rumor, smiles fading into grimaces. Elise laughed it off. That's the cleanse working. But her voice cracked just a hair. I leaned back against the wall, smiling faintly, arms crossed like a spectator at a comedy of errors. The cracks were now visible to everyone, hairline fractures spreading across her polished facade. Carla jotted notes furiously, her pen a silent ally. But the worst was still coming, a storm brewing beyond the juice debacle. Elise pushed on, but the foundation shook. Midway through the afternoon yoga session, Elise took center stage on the mat, demonstrating a fancy warrior pose to impress her paying disciples. "Feel the energy flow," she cooed, arms outstretched like a budget superhero. But her foot slipped on a slick spot, maybe from spilled detox juice, and she twisted her ankle with a sharp crack, tumbling down in a heap. She screamed like a banshee caught in a trap, clutching her leg as pain twisted her face. Guests rushed forward, murmuring concern, offering ice and pillows, but the guru they'd shelled out big bucks for suddenly looked very human, very fallible, sprawled there in her pricey leggings. Whispers spread. Is this part of the healing? No, it was the mask cracking further, her aura of perfection shattering like cheap glass underfoot. I stayed back, arms folded, whispering under my breath. Perfect. As a history teacher, I'd seen falls from grace before. This one was textbook. Carla the reporter caught my eye again, her notebook ready. Elise limped off stage, trying to laugh it off, but the air had shifted. Time for my part in the act, the reveal she'd never see coming. As Elise hobbled off stage, supported by two flustered guests, the room buzzed with awkward silence, the yoga mats forgotten like relics of a failed ritual. I stood up slowly, heart pounding but voice steady, and cleared my throat into the microphone she'd left behind. Folks, I'm Frank Turner, not just her before photo, but her father, and a witness to what's really going on here. Heads turned, eyes widening as I laid it out plain. The fake followers bought in bulk, the $40,000 debt drowning her empire, the junk supplements causing more harm than health. This isn't wellness, it's a con, I said, pulling out my notebook for dramatic effect, reading snippets of complaints and shady deals. Gasps filled the hall like popcorn popping, phones shooting up to record every word, lights flashing in the dim lodge. The silence that followed was deafening, thicker than fog on the lake outside. Elise froze in the wings, face paling like she'd seen a ghost. Her own reflection, maybe. But I wasn't the star yet. The real bombshell waited. And then the reporter stood up, her notes in hand, ready to drop the hammer. Carla, the reporter, stood up next, her notes clutched like a winning lottery ticket, voice cutting through the stunned hush. I've confirmed everything Mr. Turner just shared, and more, she announced, flipping pages with precision. Unpaid taxes piling up to $15,000. FDA complaints about mislabeled supplements that could harm folks. Even supplier lawsuits for bounced checks. She rattled off details I didn't even know, like how Elise had dodged health inspections by faking lab reports. The room erupted in murmurs turning to outrage. Her empire wasn't a business, but a ticking time bomb wrapped in pretty packaging. Guests shifted from shock to fury, faces reddening like overripe tomatoes, demanding refunds on the spot. I want my $5,000 back, one yelled, phone already dialing a lawyer. Others nodded, pulling out wallets to snap photos of receipts as evidence. Elise's glowy facade shattered like a dropped mirror, 7 years of bad luck crashing down. She tried to speak from the sidelines, limping forward with a weak, "This is all a misunderstanding," but no one listened, their ears tuned to the truth bomb exploding around them. The retreat had flipped from healing haven to house of cards and freefall. One by one, the guests rose like a tide retreating from a polluted shore, gathering bags and muttering curses under their breath. They tossed their half-empty juice bottles into the trash with dramatic clangs, the detox elixir, now just sticky garbage mocking Elise's claims. "This is fraud, pure and simple," a burly man shouted, storming toward the exit while dialing his credit card company. Others joined the chorus, some demanding lawyers on the spot, voices overlapping in a chaotic symphony of betrayal. "I drove 3 hours for this scam," a woman hissed, mascara streaking as she wiped angry tears. Elise stood frozen center stage, her own mascara running like black rivers down her cheeks, the goddess reduced to a soggy statue. Her empire crumbled in real time, sign-ups evaporating faster than morning dew under a hot sun. Carla snapped photos discreetly, capturing the meltdown for her article. I watched from the back, a quiet satisfaction settling in like warm coffee on a cold day. The walkout left the lodge echoing empty, but I wasn't finished yet. My notebook held more threads to pull, ensuring the unraveling went all the way. Days after the retreat meltdown, the legal knock came like a thunderclap on a clear sky. Elise was served papers at her apartment door, a class action lawsuit slapped together by those furious clients, demanding refunds, damages, and an end to her scam. Mrs. Harlan led the charge, backed by a dozen others with receipts and headaches as proof. Her debts ballooned overnight, that $40,000 hole swelling to twice the size as suppliers sued for unpaid bills and taxes piled on like uninvited guests. Brand partnerships dropped her faster than a hot potato in a game of corporate tag, emails flooding in with "we're out" notices. I watched the fire spread from my recliner, calm as ever, sipping coffee while her socials turned toxic with hashtags like #GlowPathFraud. The woman who'd mocked me relentlessly was now the face of a scandal, her filtered selfies buried under memes of her retreat flop. Carla's article hit the local paper front page, sealing the deal. Elise's empire wasn't just cracked, it was rubble. And her before photo? I was laughing last, quietly, as justice did its dance. The family fallout hit like a domino chain toppling in slow motion. Relatives whispered behind hands at gatherings, aunts clucking about poor Elise's mess, while cousins unfollowed her online like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Friends vanished into thin air, ghosting her texts and dodging calls, leaving her isolated in her crumbling world. One stormy evening, she showed up at my door, soaked and crying, mascara tracks like war paint gone wrong. "Dad, why didn't you defend me? Why let it all burn?" she sobbed, collapsing into a chair. I looked her in the eye, steady as a lighthouse in the gale, and said, "Because you stopped being my daughter when you used me as a joke, turning family into fodder for your lies." Her tears flowed like a busted faucet, but they couldn't undo years of arrogance, the sharp words and dismissals that had chipped away at our bond. For the first time, she saw who she'd lost, not just a prop, but the man who'd built her foundation. A father's silence can cut deeper than words, carving truths that sobs can't erase. She left quieter, the storm raging on outside. Her brand vanished like a ghost in the dawn, accounts suspended, website offline, the glow snuffed out by scandal's shadow. Her money dried up too, loans calling due like persistent bill collectors at the door. Broke and broken, Elise packed her bags and slunk back to Ohio, moving into her childhood bedroom under my roof, the same one she'd mocked as outdated in her reels. Humiliation hung on her like a wet coat, heavy and clinging. For the first time in years, she sat quietly at my dinner table, picking at pot roast without a word, no cameras flashing, no followers to impress, no snide jokes at my expense. Just a broken woman staring at her plate, the weight of her lies pressing down like an invisible anvil. She'd learned too late that facades crack under truth's hammer, her empire reduced to rubble she'd have to sift through alone. As a dad, I cooked and cleaned, offering silence as space, but inside, doubts swirled like autumn leaves in wind. But I wasn't sure if I forgave her yet. The cuts from her mockery ran deep, scars not easily healed by tears or time. The internet never forgets, a digital elephant with a memory like steel trap, replaying Elise's downfall on endless loops. Memes of her retreat flops spread like wildfire through dry brush, her twisted ankle and tear-streaked face photoshopped into failure templates. Videos of my speech went viral, comments flooding in. "The real glow-up is dad schooling his kid." People tagged me left and right, turning me from punchline to hero. "Frank's the boss. Take notes." For once, I wasn't the butt of the joke. I was the lesson carved into her downfall, a cautionary tale etched in pixels and posts. Strangers messaged support, sharing their own scam stories, making me feel like a quiet avenger in sweatpants. Elise scrolled in silence, her glow dimmed to a flicker, the backlash a mirror she couldn't shatter. But as satisfying as it was, a final itch nagged. I had one more thread to pull, and I decided to deliver one last blow, not out of spite, but to seal the chapter, ensuring her lies stayed buried under the weight of unfiltered truth. I started a blog a week after the dust settled, typing away on my old laptop in the quiet of my study. Not about wellness fads or quick fixes, but about truth, aging with grace, building resilience through storms, and holding on to dignity in a world obsessed with perfection. My first post spilled it all. How my daughter turned me into her before punchline, and how her lies crumbled like a sandcastle at high tide. Thousands followed overnight, comments pouring in like rain after drought. Finally, real talk, and "You're the hero we need." Grateful souls shared their stories of filters failing them, turning my words into a beacon for the weary. I wasn't the frumpy before anymore. I was the after, the man who rose tall when her empire collapsed into dust. Elise lurked in the shadows of her room, scrolling my posts in silence, her glow extinguished by the harsh light of reality. She had to live in the ruins she built, sifting through the wreckage of her own deceit. Revenge had never tasted so clean, like fresh water after a long, dusty road. As a dad, I taught my final lesson, and the world was listening. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video, comment, and smash the subscribe button. Also check out other videos on the channel. Joe's got more interesting stories for you.